I have the pleasure of sitting here today with one of my favorite artists, Hisako Kobayashi. And I want to really just spend some time talking with you and finding out a little bit about how you make what you make and why you make what you make.
Okay.
And hopefully at the end of this, I will be wiser and our audience will be wiser. Maybe you will even have discovered some things.
I will know more about me.
Yes, that is the hope. I'm a great fan of starting with now. So I'm going to begin by showing some recent paintings of yours, and this is probably the thing that you're not supposed to do in a video. But I'm going to just start with a couple minutes of silence, and let's take a moment to look at these paintings and to enjoy the silence and see what we see. And I'm going to show two more, and these are really just to sort of set the table for us, make sure that the audience, who may know your work very well and they may not know it so well, give them a sense of what you are making now. These are all recent paintings. I do particularly love that title, the idea of a pilgrimage.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just love to know from you, having looked at these paintings, and I'll go back to this last painting, the Pilgrim to a Million Years Ago, and just want to know, how does a work like this? How does it begin? Where do you start when you make a painting? When you make a painting such as this?
Well, actually, my answer would be boring. I don't really have plans. Usually, I don't. Sometimes I have some feeling about it, which direction or what kind of feeling I like to evoke in the artwork. But usually, I just start. And the painting, it's more like rather than me directing the way to go, painting direct me.
So you are really, you're responding to what you're feeling as you're making it.
Yes, I make mark, lines or color, and then I talk to, it's almost like you and I are talking. I do that with canvas.
That's beautiful. That actually seems much less boring than having a plan.
Well, having plan, I think not knowing is a challenge, but it is interesting for me, what to find in it.
And do you find that when you are somewhere along this journey of making the painting that maybe there is some sense to it, that actually there was something that wasn't just random, but something that became very much a purpose?
Yeah, you go through many different stages and you take out, erase or add, and then back and forth for some time. But then gradually, you find some kind of rhythm in the painting, and that's sort of a push forward, and then that's the time I'm very close to finishing it.
So do you feel like there's actually an aha, a eureka kind of moment for you? Is it something that distinct, or is it something that just...
Well, sometimes I feel like I'm coming close, but then work like this, you never know until you can when you're done, because some color, they don't go together, or lines would destroy the whole painting, and then I start all over again. So but then also the idea of finish is a difficult thing to define, because you think you're finished, and then a month later you come back, you don't feel right about it, you want to change. So this happened often. But I think many things in the work, the lines and color texture, the amount of color and how they connect with each other, all this sort of, just like singing, they come together to me, then I feel like it's done. There is nothing more I can add to make it more perfect. So I walk away, but as I say, Sometimes you come back later, I do again.
So painting is never truly finished.
I would say that, yeah, almost done, but the painting is just like you and me, it's alive. So, change all the time. You change and the painting change.
Yes. So your relationship with the painting certainly
Yes.
changes, and the new you sees something that could be different and maybe better, right?
I hope so. I hope I don't go back. That's one of the reasons why I paint. I like to go forward. I like to be able to see more.
That's beautiful. I think I shared with you once a story. I had a dear artist friend, and I had to stop inviting him to my home. I could only meet him at his studio or someplace else, because if he came to my home, he came with a set of paints and brushes, and he might change a painting that was on my wall. So for him, truly, it was never finished. I haven't seen you do that.
I didn't know I could do that.
Oh, no, now I've created a monster. So you said you don't have a plan before a painting, but you sometimes have an idea, or you have an inspiration, something that has fired the desire to make a painting?
Yeah, definitely. Or as I work, I recall certain thing that I've seen, or maybe the sound or something like that. I like to bring that feeling to the painting, and I try. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes not, but I have moment of that. In everything I do, how I feel is most important. And as soon as any part of that become very self-conscious or like that, it doesn't work. So it's a fine line.
So I'm curious about the role of chance. Do you feel like chance plays a part of this? Or
A lot.
A lot, okay. So things happen on the canvas that
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
you weren't intending, and then
But-
that gives you a direction.
Yeah, well, I think it is artists who see it. Many things I just let it go, and then I find what may work, but that makes my painting, I think.
But it's the artist's eye that
Yeah.
takes that piece and then develops it in a particular
Right,
direction.
yeah.
That's true to you.
Yeah, I like chances. It gives more. I like the openness.
So every time you come to a painting, it's an adventure. There are possibilities.
Yeah, that's the thing I enjoy most. Not knowing what will show up.
Well, that's good. It keeps it from being only drudgery. Work you have to do. It's work that you can do, right?
Yeah, I like the idea. I don't know what direction I go, and I find as I go along. It would be boring for me to have a drawing, and I would draw just like what in my drawing. It's like making a copy of that, but I don't think I would be an artist if that was a kind of art it was required me to do. But it is like a life, you have to create.
It's interesting that you make this analogy about the drawing, because there are many times that I look at preparatory drawings and studies for finished paintings, and I like the drawing sometimes it's a collage, but whatever the preparatory work better, when like the ideas are very fresh and fertile and still coming together, sometimes those feel like they have more life to me than the finished work.
I don't have much to say about experience of drawing and transfer that drawing onto the canvas, because I haven't really done enough to say, but there are a lot of wonderful paintings done that way.
So I'm curious if this process that you've described now over the last few minutes, I'm curious if that process has changed over time.
A process of doing it by chance.
By chance, and letting it develop on the canvas rather than having some more formal
Yeah.
process?
I always like to draw, and then I like to look at flowers or anything around, and I just drew. And I wasn't really thinking any more than that, just enjoy drawing and then making things. And then I've done many sketches of people or things like that. But then as I grow older, I lost interest. And I just, there is no reason why I felt I have no interest in doing that. When I first came to New York, I went to a Pratt Institute. I was thinking to work on sculpture and also art therapy in the beginning, and I was interested in working with people through art. And then sculpture was interesting because it is unknown to me, the three-dimensional quality, and I wanted to try that. But the teacher I had at the Pratt Institute didn't agree with the way I was more interested in. Not so. He thought I should make things as you and I see it, and not something like symbolic or abstract. And so I was thinking to do more with like a mirror, a paper, something very different material from traditional type, and also more abstract, I guess. So I dropped out of the class and I decided to focus only painting. So this is because I just lost interest. And then also same thing with the art therapy. I was thinking very different things about what to do with a painting, dealing with people who are in trouble. But I wanted to reach beyond it. There's certain type of energy, the item or a person and all that, and then the feeling of direct, I wanted to touch directly. And so abstraction is no shape and no representing anything is more attractive to me.
And you sound like you felt also confined by the shape, and certainly your paintings really have no borders. They really are potentially infinite.
Yeah, I grew up in Japan, and things I always felt as I was growing up very confining. I wanted to get away from that.
Well, certainly one way you have is through the use of color, and I would just love, as I show this beautiful Gypsy in One's Soul from last year, from 2022, just like for you to talk about the role of color in your work.
So this painting, I felt like painting using red, and I painted red all over, and then I had, I wanted to make something, a mark on it, and then I had a brush with black paint, and then I started making lines without any thought, and then I wanted to, the only feeling I had was I wanted to make it go beyond something big. And so I just did all kind of shapes, just like dancing around of no intention. And then I added very thin lines and sort of dancing around. I liked it, the movement going upward. When the painting was half dry, it was not enough going on. And so I played around, and then the red was very prominent against black lines. So there was a tension of the line pushing into red, and red is coming forward, and that was interesting. But I wanted to make it more quiet. I felt like that. So I use very light blue to go over, and then the movement is coming down this way. And so sort of like movement was going up the red, and then red pushing it forward, and the blue is going like in my mind, I felt there was a rhythm like that.
Well, that's beautiful to hear you describe that process and how it works for you in this painting. It sounds like you see a lot of motion coming from the color, which was something actually my father talked about a great deal, that color actually generates its own motion. Do you see color as primary in your paintings over line, or do you feel like the form dictates what you do with color?
I know for sure the form do not dictate, but I'm not sure the way you describe Mark Rothko's painting, the color means a lot. It's so much.
But it sounds like you're very conscious of the relationship between the colors and how that changes the feeling
Yeah,
and the dynamics of the painting.
Yeah, some colors, coming more to you, and some colors are so color in that way is very important.
And I will say I've had the pleasure over the last couple of weeks of looking at a lot of your work, and I have noticed that I feel like blue is a particular touch tone for you. Is there a particular meaning, or does blue make you feel a certain way that you return to it so much?
I just like blue.
That's okay.
And also I find dark color like black. I used to feel very comfortable working with it, and somehow I can bring together in dark colors. Used to, but then I challenged. I think you need different dimensions, and the color bring a different part of you, and so this blue painting, I was working with gray, light gray, white, and blue. And black underneath, all kind of shape are going on, and then I went over with light blue, and then the texture on the surface was going between interacting with the shape underneath, and then I thought create a very quiet area and a very active area, which is in the middle, and then I left it for a while, but I thought the painting needs something much more decisive. And so I took like a knife, I scraped the line over the surface, and then I felt good. This is working.
Well, this was actually something I was going to ask you about later, but let's talk about it here. So there are many paintings that are simply abstract, and there are others with lines that run through them. Are you often as not scraping away as you are adding with when you're making the lines?
Yeah, a lot. Sometimes the surface is like, but I would like painting to be done as much as possible, effortlessly done. That's a difficult thing. Like I don't want the painting to look so tired and overworked.
So you try not to interfere too much, it sounds like.
Well, I still do. I can't help it. But I like to have the look of that. Like I think Matisse might have said that. Just like came out just naturally.
There is absolutely a naturalness to Matisse's painting. It's like it was always meant to be like that. I know my father appreciated that as well. He was one of really my father's greatest heroes.
Yeah, his use of red is beautiful.
So I'm going to show you a painting from 2019, 4 years ago, Omoyari, and this is from 2019. I'm going to put it on the screen. And 4 years, as to me, seems like not very long ago. But in the working life of an artist, this may feel like ancient history to you. And I'm curious, how does it look to you now, 4 years later? Does it feel like the painting you recognize, or is it?
Oh, definitely. I still like it. And this omoiyari means compassion in Japanese. And the cool blue underneath was I started out. And then I went over with dark pinkish color coming down from above and gradually becoming thinner. In the middle, I don't know if you can see, there's a line. I was playing around with lines all over, and then I erased all of it except one coming in the middle, like that. So that very gentle touch to the surface, and a very gentle pink, or dark pink, it's very thin around there. Is a feeling evoke omoiyari, the compassion, touching very gently.
Yeah, gentle does seem to be very appropriate for this painting. So when you say you erase a line, does that mean that you're actually going and painting back in over it?
Yeah.
So your erasing is not taking away, you're actually adding back.
Oh, both.
Both, okay.
I use anything to make it look clean and untouched, but I take away or I add it. So if you look with like this, you see the lines behind.
But it's very striking to me hearing you talk about this and actually seeing your face when you started talking about this feels very familiar to you and very close to you. Still, I can tell that it's still very much a part of you.
Very much, yeah. I mean, putting all the lines and the colors and like that, and then taking away that you don't like or you don't think it's working, it's just a process. I don't think I can just put everything and then this is fine.
But I just saw you peel away 4 years and be right back in that process. It's you remembered every moment of that. I could tell. It's remarkable.
It's hard, yeah. It's almost like a onion, peeling all the skins out and trying to get to the core.
And that's adding, but it's also taking away.
Yeah, it's like finding the core of what the painting I'm trying to make.
How long a process is this for a typical painting? Is it something that goes on for a week or for months?
Well, actual physical painting itself, not as much, but looking. And then other times, the best time to look is like a very early morning, you're not fully awake, you walk into my studio. This is nice because I live and work here, same place. So I wake up and then I often go to my studio and I look. And then I see something I haven't seen before in there, sometimes especially dark outside. And so that's the best time. But I think your brain can take so much when you're painting. You cannot really work after so many hours. You just have to rest your brain because you can't see anymore. And then you go back, and then because you've been away for a few hours, you can see it from outside, like feeling. You are detached from it.
I just heard, I have a composer friend, Bruce Adolph, who just published a short book about the creative process. And he actually talks about the time just when you're falling asleep and just as you've woken up as being that moment when you sort of grasp onto what it is you're trying to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes you think, very difficult, this painting, and you are thinking for days, and then you wake up and you kind of, I know what to do.
So this is how I know I'm not an artist, because I wake up and the only thing I need to know how to do is turn on the coffee machine.
I think each one has different way of seeing it.
So I asked you to turn the clock back 4 years. Now we're going to turn the clock back a little further and talk to you. I'm going to talk to you a little bit, or talk with you a little bit, I should say, about how you became an artist. Now, I know you moved to New York in 1979, but you were born in Japan. Is that right? And what did you study in Japan?
I studied art history.
And the art history, was it of any particular period, or was it specific
Contemporary.
to contemporary Japanese, or from all over?
Western.
Oh, Western. Okay.
So I had knowledge of, I studied like Cezanne or Poussin or classic art as well. And then I learned the structure they create are very different from Japanese artwork.
So you mentioned to us earlier that your mother was a calligrapher, and I have a couple of samples up on screen of her calligraphy, which I know you're familiar with because you showed them to me. But what do these pieces mean to you? Do you have a lot of familiarity with them, and do they speak to you in some way as a daughter or an artist or both?
I have both good and bad feeling, but my mother. This was a book of my mother's, and she's explaining about how to arrange flowers. And the way this writing is called, we have many different kind of writing, but this is social writing and classic writing, and takes many years of training to write like that. And so one of the very difficult thing is that you have to be really focused and well trained to write like that, because the rice paper is very thin, and then the brush. So once you put down, unlike oil painting, which you can go back and change again and again, you cannot change. That's only once. And so you have to be very disciplined. And it's a beautiful writing, but I think she liked the idea that I would learn from her, but this is so strict, and so I walk out from this. And so, in a way, this is beautiful, and I also respect years of training and her pursuit of beauty in the way it's written. I think probably I am influenced in my art.
So it sounds like you appreciate the dedication she brought to her art, but your way is different.
Very different. But I don't know, as my mother passed away, in many ways I think we are alike too.
How so? What do you feel like you carry forth with you?
She's very disciplined and a perfectionist in what she did, but also very flamboyant. It has both ends.
And do you see that coming out in the way she makes her characters, or is that really not permitted?
I think I have sort of both. I think it's good for the artist to have many different elements, very delicate and could be completely the other way, or timid or shy, but also very bold. And she was like that. She loved to sing, and she would sing on the street and like that. It's beautiful voice, but a lot of things. I wish she was alive.
But even within this strict regimen, it sounds like she had her freedoms too.
Yeah. After so many years of training, you become completely free, and you become actually creative in the way you make the letters.
So even if you're doing it in a classical style, there's still room for you to have your own personal quality to it.
Many poetry are written in this style.
So you had asked to speak about an old photograph that you sent me. You want to tell us a little bit about what is here and also why it's important to you?
Yeah, it's important to me. This is my grandmother and my father and two priests. A priest came to the house occasionally to offer a prayer for the family. And my grandmother was very much a Buddhist, and she was such a nice lady. And so she often talked about how important it is for us to be help people, nice to them, and be generous and all that. And she would say, if you do that, the ideas like that circulate, and then later come back to you. And I didn't really understood why this would come back to me, but I think her positive attitude for life and people, I hope I inherited in me, and then I like to create art that will be positive rather than destructive. So in that way, I think her so-called teaching is wonderful to receive.
So you feel like you hope that her kindness comes out through you.
I think it's very important.
Now, I know when you first began as an artist, you were doing figurative work, and I will show a couple of examples. But the ones I have are just from, I think, 1977 and 1979. And in 1981, you already have your MFA, your Masters of Fine Arts from the Pratt Institute. So I'm curious to know a little bit about your process getting from this beautiful flower vase in this drawn portrait, and then we have just a couple years later more abstracted but still very much figurative works. How you jump from there to I think this is 1981 when you're finishing your degree. So that's a very rapid progression. So tell us a little bit about that process, if you could.
The drawings you just shown us were done back in Japan, and I had other drawings, but I left most of it in Japan, and those are the ones that I could find here. The other pieces that you showed, the first year at Pratt Institute, I did. As I said, I was interested in sculptural quality, and then I decided to give up on the actual sculpture making. I went into two-dimensional painting, and in this, I was interested in creating a kind of shape which is unique and also has a dimension and has more than one meaning. I was hoping that you looking at it, you could first you see two shapes hanging down. It's almost like a part of your body shape. But then in this drawing, there is something face-like thing in between, like a sandwiched. And then I was hoping I'd be able to say more things in one painting rather than just the visual and one message, to have different things being said at the same time. But I wasn't able to really hold my interest, and then lots of different stimuli in a graduate school, exposed to different ideas. And then I decided I would try something else. And then came very linear work like that. And this is one of earlier piece. And so in this, I was interested in separating line for line and color for the color, and material, the texture for texture itself. And then this is 4 canvases. Each canvas supposed to stand by itself. There should be enough in there. So yellow canvas, black, pink, blue, they could be seen by itself, but they could also be seen together. And then when they are brought together, like in this one, they should go together like in sort of harmonious way. And so the line talk to each other in a different space. So those lines are random, yet they means they have a connection with each other. And the one on the right side, smaller painting, is looser, and the background color became more important, so that the background color in this is pinkish red, so become more forceful. So creating a certain tension, what's going on in the front and background, and the forms are beginning to dissolve. And I think I experimented with different lines going after this, but this is a beginning. I tried many pieces like that, but it's not enough for me. There's something missing still. And then next step, I think I had 4 or 5 years of a period of graduating. I married and I had children, so I was very busy taking care of it. But then when I came back, I was thinking I need to incorporate a different element that I worked on it in the past, and I've been thinking about how I could do that. And the painting called Positive Choice was one of a result of this idea. This painting called Positive Choice has I think all the element of earlier work and then later work, the 2 years I was in graduate school, and there was lines there, and then the colors, but the looseness began to become more loose, and then so the background lines and the color, and then warm ochre with all kind of line going around, and then the blackish gray on top of it, and then way on the top is red, and then so there's all kind of line dancing around, but bottom and the black line and the line all over were sort of like a echo with each other, and moving different directions toward red. So I call that Positive Choice.
So it sounds like that painting still in your mind was really crucial for you finding your way into the style that feels like the artist you are now.
Yeah, I think that was beginning, but I've been trying to incorporate all these elements of who I am, and so this has been a lot of fun. Who am I? Finding out different things. Oh my gosh, this is interesting. Is that me? Yes.
So you recognize in your own work, you recognize yourself in your own work by what actually stimulates you.
Yes.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It's like digging inside, excavating. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a psychologist by training, and we call like somebody. Sometimes we'll take somebody else and we'll find elements of ourselves. We talk it almost as like an external ego, sort of like an external version of ourselves. We see elements of ourselves in other people, and it helps us understand ourselves better. So it sounds like your painting is a little bit.
Painting is everything.
Yes. Well, it's remarkable because I think in 1981 you get your degree and you also become a mother that year, and it's a very busy time, but somehow your work develops, and I was very struck that by 1986, and you said you're really not having a lot of time to paint during this time, but by 1986 I found a couple examples of your work. So Positive Choice is in fact one of the paintings I saw from '86, and then I found 2 other somewhat smaller works.
Yeah.
It was striking to me how much of your mature style is already in these works, and this is almost 40 years ago now.
Yeah, I was playing around with different things, and this painting called Celebration, I tried like a red dot, like someone talking, And then I thought that might be interesting. And then Symphony of Color, yeah, that was the feeling evoked from music as I was working. Not I was listening really, but internally. And then see, way on the top, there's a one line which is revealing what's underneath, the warmth of heart, I guess. Sound corny, but something like that. You know, music is like that.
It is like that. It touches us in a very direct way. Are you trying to get some of that feeling in your painting, that very direct connection?
Yeah.
With our
And
insides?
it's scraping and revealing underneath is a good feeling.
This is something I love that musicians do, that sometimes they have something very complex going on and then they just subtract pieces from it and you hear that underneath there was something there all the time that you didn't recognize before.
Yeah.
And it was really the essence of what was going
It's
on.
mostly dark, and then those lines are scraped, and then underneath is bright yellow. So those two pieces relate to me, color and sound.
The Symphony of Color is, that's the title that you come back to. I think you have at least 10 works that have that as part of their title. Do you see those really connected in a direct way, or are they just, this is just something that captures for you this feeling of the connection between color and music?
The music is very, very close to my heart, and I always enjoy listening to it. And there is a connection between different colors and music, and I would like to, I have hoped bring out such a feeling when you listen to music. It would be great if I could paint like that. So maybe that was my way of trying to bring an aspect of music into painting.
I think you mentioned before when we talked about this that sometimes when you listen to music you actually see colors.
When I was little, one time my father also liked music, listening to it, and then he had a magazine, and he told me, he said, that sound, look at this one, like this, right? Or something like that. I remember that all the time. And something like that, I was listening to Mahler one time, and gosh, that not only the color, but the many shapes came out of that. And I thought, my gosh, I could do this in my artwork.
So it's not like you paint your idea of one piece of music. It has a more general influence on you?
Yeah, I think like a rhythmic quality that like I listen so much that it's in me. And I see in my art a rhythm, not like music rhythm, but there's a rhythm there. So you follow that. Do you know what I mean?
I know what I know it in other artwork. I don't know it in my own life because I don't have this connection between hearing things and
you might
making.
Once you start doing it.
There's plenty of time. So one thing I'm curious about, these last two works from 1986 I showed are both works on paper. I happen to love what you do on paper, and I'd just love to know from your perspective, what happens differently on paper for you?
I have chosen paper that has a pattern already underneath, and then I would connect what I'm trying to do with what's going on underneath, and then walk around. And one of the occasions I was shown in a rice paper museum in Japan, and they asked me only using rice paper. So that was, I produce a lot of rice paper work. But normally I like to work on canvas.
Gives you more opportunity to use chance and then maybe redirect.
Throw the canvas. I work often on the floor, most of the, and then so that I can spill things and all kind of, but with the rice paper, it has to be more gentle.
And when you use the rice paper, do you feel a connection to more traditional Japanese art? Does this feel like a Japanese part of you coming out, or not especially?
Not especially because I'm using oil paint, and it's the area that no, I don't think so. I don't think, yeah.
So this was to make the museum happy. It was not necessarily to make you feel a connection.
But the idea of lines and like that comes rather easy for me, how I should do like that. But it's actually works against me because it become, I like something a bit more difficult, a challenge. So Japanese writings or a way of making marks, Japanese way, would be some ways, if I may say, too easy for me. I would like to be more unknown and try to, so I can challenge and find.
Find your own way.
Yeah, fight and find one.
So I'm curious, really, one last question about your development as an artist, although I understand from what you're saying, your development of the artist as an artist is every day. But I'm just curious, during your training or as you were a student, is there someone you felt was a strong influence or really a guiding light for you?
There was one person that I liked very much who taught undergraduate school. His name was Jack Sonnenberg. And so I went to ask him if he could be my thesis advisor. And he told me that it's difficult because I was in graduate school, different section. And so he said, he recommended I take his class. So I took one class from him so that he could be helping me go through that. There are many people I have been, and Mark Roscoe, of course, is the major person, but it's a dangerous person because he's so powerful. So if I go that direction, I'd be lost. But the kind of thing that I learned was a feeling part, and the connection that that can bring to you was very important because without that, that's essential. And people like Cézanne, his determination and the force like that was needed to go through. Doing art takes courage and endurance.
I'm always amazed by the courage of artists to not only be true to themselves, but then to share that with people publicly. I think that is a tremendously bold gesture.
Yes, somebody said it's almost like standing naked, ready to be shot.
Absolutely. Other artists, and they don't have to be visual artists, but other artists, writers, painters, dancers, musicians that have really been an influence as you've worked through your own artistic career.
The movie maker called Andrei Tarkovsky, and Russian, he made movies in 1950s, 1960s like that, and his movies are very visual, poetic. I think I would like to create that kind of depth and a beauty in the work. I felt that.
So I'd love to ask a little bit about what your time in the studio is like. How much time you tend to spend there? Is it an everyday sort of thing, or just when you're inspired? Tell us a little bit about going to your studio.
I go as much as I can, and I'm lucky because I don't have children grown up, and I have time for myself. I have all day, every day, and so I am actually pretty busy. I like to do some research sometime, and and my times are, I don't know why I'm so busy. I'm not really working per se, but I go to my studio. That's my work. So the work in my studio do not end. Sometimes I work until past midnight, wake up 4 o'clock, and then I go. And I had a small operation recently, and then after I came back, my children were asking how did it go? Are you okay? And all that. And then Jean said, "Oh, Hisako was working this morning 6 o'clock in her studio." So they said, "Yay!"
So they know you're okay.
Yeah, okay.
The anesthesia did not change you.
No, nothing.
Okay. So it sounds like really every chance that you can, you're in the studio and
I would like
working.
to. And I learned how I should simplify other things so that I have more time. I don't mean in my studio I'm painting all the time, but I do a lot of things there. And mainly painting, but like you can't really always paint, you have to think about it. And also you can only focus like maybe 2 hours, and then you have to stop and then do other things, maybe another hour, 2 hours, and then you go back because you can't see anymore. So best day for me, I start in my studio, and then I work a couple of hours, and I do around the house, and then go back, and then after that I lie down, and then maybe read a little bit, and then back and forth. So no restriction, all day is open. That's the ideal situation. Yeah, but of course I have to sometimes talk to my friend, go, different places, and yeah.
But studio is ultimately home.
That's my main spot, yeah.
And do you ever work with assistants, or are they ever there helping you paint, or always by yourself?
No, painting part is myself, yeah.
Will they help you like make stretchers and things like this?
Sometimes, yeah, stretcher, and also like wrapping things and send it like that. But yeah, painting is difficult for someone else to do. But I enjoy doing it. I think I enjoy more now.
Hasn't gotten old yet.
No, not that part.
That's great. And are there particular types of paints or other materials that are really essential to your practice? Is there anything about specific materials that are essential to what you do?
Like I use linseed oil a lot, and then a turpentine to create certain textures. Like I like to use paint canvases already. There was some painting on it. Started some time ago, and then I go back some years later, and then I find something new. Then I start from there. So I like that quality old canvas.
So the essential material for you is Kobayashi, right? It needs to be your own work. I'm assuming you're not painting over other people's work.
Yeah.
I'm curious, we've spent all the time to now really speaking just about painting. But do you ever draw? I know you don't draw as something to prepare for a painting, but is drawing ever something that you do just because it's part of expressing what you need to express, or finding your way into an idea?
I don't really do drawing. I do drawing with my grandchild. I work with her a lot. She loves to draw. And it's interesting to watch them, the little babies, so spontaneous and in touch with the way they see and they feel and making it. And so I work with her. But the drawing for the sake of painting, I don't do. But I do drawing on the canvas.
Yeah, that was my next question. Is it's interesting that you don't see yourself as someone who draws, because you do clearly draw a lot on the canvas. So I have a painting from 2017 up now called A Pot of Tea, which is a very welcoming, very welcoming title. But clearly there is as many drawn elements as there are painted elements here. So how does drawing function within your painting if you don't see yourself as an artist who draws?
Drawing lines activate space, and then in between drawings or shapes and like that. Drawing is very important to me in that way, but it has to be worked into the painting. And so if I just draw for the drawing's sake, it's maybe I could do that, but I never really tried. Sometimes drawing brings the quality which was not there. And so in this one, black lines and white lines, they are creating tension, moving different directions. And then the big white shape on the top was something like, and the light coming through diagonal from top right side to lower left side, and then the lines going the other direction is creating a certain rhythm.
But the drawing is really in the service of the painting. It's helping, as you said, I think you said, to activate things and change motion and energy.
It's purely for that reason, not to describe anything.
Mm. So you don't ever go and draw in nature, even though there are clearly natural elements in what you draw.
Yeah, I don't. But recently, in my studio, I have a large pink painting, pink canvas, and then in that you will probably see lots of line, looks like trees, hidden tree. And I was taking a walk in a countryside, and it was so beautiful, like how come I didn't know this? And every time you walk or see the outside, like a nature, like that, inspire something in me. And I used to avoid, I don't know why, earlier, nature, not to see it, but to draw in it. But I start doing it. I see what happened now.
Okay, so maybe you've gotten even freer, right? If you can now admit nature directly to the painting.
Well, I'm like something without reason, really. You pushed away certain things. I think I am more willing to integrate everything and see what happens.
One of the things that struck me about A Pot of Tea is true of a number of your other paintings. I'm going to bring one up that I actually believe is in my collection, or my wife's and I collection, called Symphony of Seasons. And I'm struck by the strongly vertical feel of this. And many of your paintings are relatively square, but you have some paintings that become just dramatically vertical, and the verticality seems to be a part of the way the painting functions. It seems to be it seems to be doing something for you, and I guess I would love you, as best you can, to put into words why this strong vertical element.
Well, this painting originally was 4 pieces, and it was called Symphony of Seasons, like spring, summer, like that, 4 seasons. But before that, the title was Symphony of Colors, changed to seasons. And then I thought of 4 seasons, but that sounds almost like a restaurant, so I decided Symphony of Seasons. But as I said before, each painting, even though they are 4, I want each to work by itself. It has enough in each. So season 1, 2, 3, 4, they are separate, but they can also work together. So this one is the more like a winter. But one thing about this painting I struggled was to keep the as I say, because I worked in this many times, I wanted to make it fresh on the surface. The feeling of layers of different shape coming and then coming closer to you, and then where at the top sort of peeks out, trying to reach something. This actually reminds me of recall the painting, the sculpture piece I really like at the Louvre Museum, a figure of female with wings attached to both sides, and the head was broken, but it is like looking going forward, and it's a beautiful piece, I thought, and that's the kind of way, in my mind, the human condition is, how can you find out this mystery no matter how much you try, but you keep going. And I was touched by that. And later I found out this sculpture piece was used in front of a ship going to a war. And this Venus was supposed to bring victory. But the head is off now.
Yes, I actually just saw this piece just a few months ago. I was given a brief tour by someone, and they particularly brought us to that place. They did it, and they had brought her back and put her in front of a boat.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's a new installation.
Did you like it?
I did like it. It's a very powerful figure.
Yeah, I thought about that in the back of my head. So that's the kind of feeling I have about where we live. We try the best we can to find a mystery, and that's fun.
Well, it sounds like it's still an adventure for you. That
Yeah.
this is still like every day you go back in and you're still
there's
looking for answers.
Plenty. It's just unlimited amount.
Well, it's wonderful because you answered 3 of my next questions. You didn't answer the question I asked, and you can choose whether you want to answer it or not. But I'm curious about this strongly vertical, the element in this painting and many other paintings you have, including A Pot of Tea. But there are, I can think of at least 15 paintings of yours that are very strongly vertical, whereas the rest of the room will be paintings that are more or less square, or maybe more horizontal than vertical. Is there something that upward thrust that does for you?
I just feel comfortable. The feeling of very thin tall may as you are talking, I'm just thinking may come from a scroll, like that I'm used to seeing it in the house. So they have things on it and writing on it. But I'm not sure, but I just feel I like it, that shape. But then I've been trying square canvases recently. It's a bit difficult, but I
mean truly square.
Yeah.
Absolutely square. Yes, because I've seen many works of yours that are more or less square, but never exactly a square. So, and I found another piece of yours that is a triptych. That also that I'm curious about what the relationship is between those pieces. So this piece, The Risk Your Dreams Require. And I actually remember seeing this in a gallery show of yours a couple of years ago. And this appears to be 3 separate canvases, but you have them placed together. So what's the relationship, and can they function apart, and how are they different if they do function apart?
Well, this is 3 canvases. And I was thinking, I chose a color I like, green and blue. And I wanted to, in fact, I was painting like a separate. And then so the blue part is lots of dots. The green canvases, 2 of them together, were lots of lines, many lines. And I erased many. But the line, I just felt like trying to reach to the top. And many of them fell. And then there were a couple of lines almost reached, and then a line reached, went beyond. And then it's sort of like made me feel good. The line can go beyond. And then in a way, life is like that. And then this line going sideways, reaching toward the blue, and then when the line touch to the edge of the blue, there's a line going slightly different direction, and then reaching to the very small but bright white. So it's sort of connect that way. And then colors are still separate, but I think there's enough, I like to think, the communication going on between the two.
And could these be shown separately, or is the idea that they are really now one piece working together?
This one, I think, should be together, to be shown together.
But it started as separate elements that came together, and then
Right.
you sort of reconceived how each one worked by putting them in conversation.
Yeah, when the lines touch blue, the area of blue changes from the rest, as if like when you're touched, it's changed. And so it works together.
It does absolutely work together. I've very fond memories of seeing it in the gallery. I don't think I've seen it since then, except on screen, which is not quite the same. We've talked about some of these elements of lines, and you talked about this painting that you're working on currently that has elements of trees in it. Even though you don't draw from nature, there's still a lot of figuration in your works, pieces that seem to come from nature. So I have, again, another strongly vertical painting, Amamenu, and then also One and Only Force.
Yeah.
And both of these works seem to have elements of nature in them. So I guess we're just in the context of an art that is often largely abstract. What do these natural elements do? How are they functioning in the painting?
I wasn't really thinking natural element, but in this Amanemu Indian word is a piece. It has I started drawing a lot of lines, and then green underneath, and then trying to find some word to say. And then I erased and went and then put more surface green and created texture, and then playing around. And then as if like, again, those lines were fighting with each other, trying to reach to the top. And some just disappeared, went away. But this strong, different color line, orange, light orange, I just drew it like this. That has nothing to do with the rest, but somehow made it work. And then One and Only Force, that was done. Yeah, this movement going this direction. Lots of white circles all over the place, and I erased it. And one white dot going fast toward this direction, it's leaving everything else. I don't know. And it feels good. I ended it. I think I couldn't do it any better than that.
But it sounds like you still don't see these, you don't see, it sounds like you don't really feel like the natural world is playing an active role in your work.
Natural world?
Yes.
I wasn't thinking about it, but it's interesting. This may look like a forest, maybe. Yeah?
So
I can see that.
Certainly could be seen that way.
Yeah. It's interesting. I can see, could be like a tree branches and like that. Yeah?
Absolutely.
And this could be water or something. No, this didn't occur to me when I was painting.
So either it comes out in spite of what occurs to you, or this is also the association of your viewer.
I like that. I can say that now. I think I am part of the nature, and I think the nature is a big part of who we are. So.
We've been talking about this a little bit, about the question whether there is imagery or natural imagery in your paintings. I'd love to know from your standpoint, if you feel like there is relationship between realism, whatever that is, and abstraction, whatever that is. Is it a tension? Is it a happy marriage? Is it someplace in between?
Yeah, those paintings remind you of nature, came out without me consciously trying. And Oceana, the painting on the left, I worked on it for a while and I didn't really quite satisfied with the result. So I left in my studio for some time and I keep looking at it. And then one day I thought, well, I don't know, I just thought about what I could do to finish this painting. And so I added some colors like dark black and then very thin lines like that. And so I left it like that, at one with the world. This one, I had a lot of work done underneath, and I went over with a very thin color, like a skin, and then I made a different texture on the surface, and the one dot in the middle sort of, even though it's not so obvious, bring together in my mind, and everything is like washed away.
So in your mind, these are both abstract paintings, though.
To me,
Yes.
but I can see why you say that now.
I actually would agree with you, but I saw the title Oceana. I mean, to me, these feel abstract, but I saw the title Oceana. I said, okay, there must be some reference here to the outside world or to nature. And so I then wanted to ask you what the nature of abstraction is, but that's a big question.
My titles, I avoid direct connection with how it might look. So Oceana, but I like title to be connected to but not connected to, so that title can give a different aspect of looking at it for the person, or freedom to watch without the title. But I don't like to describe the painting, so this is interesting too. It looks, I think if you look at this painting, then the title Oceana, you would think this is some kind of ocean relation.
But for you, it's just another lens to look at the painting through.
Yeah. I guess I didn't think very carefully.
Well, I happen to love the name, but it doesn't have to be an ocean. It can still be.
But it looks like ocean now.
Well, there certainly must have been some feeling in the color that spoke to you about that, but it doesn't have to be so literal. Well, in fact, I wanted to ask you about your titles. They're often quite poetic, very evocative, and I'm curious what role titles play for you. You've talked a little bit about that, but what is the purpose of a title beyond what you've just described?
I think painting is sort of poetic to me, and how do you say poetic? Music and poet, all those similar, and I would like to bring more things in it. And when I have all these titles that I like, bring it together, give a certain atmosphere in a room. And this is some way I'm thinking about this way. It's sort of an addition.
But you mentioned that when you're painting, it's as much about thinking as about painting. So this is another one of those step back from the painting, and this is like a further thought about the painting, but without the brush, but still comes from you.
Yeah, those are important idea in me. Positive choice. I would like to relay message that way.
And sometimes you title in English, and sometimes in Japanese,
Yeah.
and sometimes in languages I can't identify.
Yeah.
So, does this mean anything, or is it simply how the title occurred to you as you were thinking about it?
Well, sometimes the sound of the word is interesting. Japanese is, I would like for people to know Japanese. And then, like Kannazuki, to the Japanese people too, because Kannazuki is a month of October. And it's a classic Japanese. Most people don't use anymore. But it means a month without God. And it has a lot of folklore stories in it. It's interesting. And omoiyari is a way to communicate. Japanese would know right away, but the compassion, thing like that, I like to. And then if I say compassion in English, it sounds a little corny, but the omoiyari is okay, you know.
So you get around connotations
Yeah,
this way. But I loved what you said also about choosing words because of how they sound. That's really poetry, right? Poets choose words because of what they mean, but also because of how they sound. It's very much. I have this whole idea about poetry should be sung, and it's as much about the sound and about the rhythm as it is about the meaning.
Well, I'd like to know more about that sound.
So ironically, I think my next slide. I think we do in fact have the month of October. Yes.
Oh, we have them there.
And we also have a work from essentially the same moment that is untitled.
Yeah, this one
And
here.
it's unusual. Most of your works, certainly most of your works the last 20 years or so, at least that I know of, have titles. So what does it mean, or does it not mean anything that this does not have a title?
Well, this piece has a element of two different forces coming together, and something is happening in the middle. And then there's a lot of black dots and white dots, sort of finding a way both directions. And Kannazuki is when this piece of music I heard played by a pianist whose right hand something happened that cannot use anymore to play. So many years later, able to fix it finally enough to play. So when he came back, or he was playing with left hand, Leon Fleischer, left hand for many years, but with both hands. And then he played a piece which was so gentle, so beautiful, that I wanted to bring that quality in my work. And I didn't really find this shape. I found it as I went along in the painting.
I actually heard Leon Fleischer, one of his first concerts after he started playing again with two hands.
You did?
Yes, yes, and I actually studied with his pupil. So I lived in Baltimore when I was in high school, and
Really?
he taught at Peabody Conservatory. So I have a little indirect connection to Leon Fleischer, fabulous pianist.
I had my best friend in Tokyo, who is a pianist, and learned from Leon Fleischer in Peabody. And then she told me he taught with different shapes, like play like this shape or something. Could you imagine that?
Okay, so not so we think about artists being inspired by music, but clearly musicians are also thinking in terms of the other arts.
How interesting.
Yes. Another sort of set of elements I think about when I think about your painting is turbulence and repose, or sort of quiet. And I see these sometimes as attention, and sometimes it's something that are maybe independent. I'd love to know if this is something that you think about. I'm going to show you a couple of examples of this Blue Highway. I think of as a more turbulent painting, and the Dream
Built on new assumption.
New Assumption. That's a more painting more of quiet and repose. Do you feel this tension in your work? Is this something that you try to balance?
Yeah, I like to create a quiet area against the lot of activity. or sometimes all over quiet. If it's too noisy, it's not my painting, I think. So I wanted to have that contrast. This Blue Highway, I painted almost many accidents in this painting. So I sort of splashed the paint and then put another painting and all different things. It went through many stages. And then one morning I saw this can be made to make sense as a painting, and then I touched up a little bit and finished. And then this dream built on new assumption. I was thinking when I went to Moscow many years ago, this ancient church, you walk in, there's a bell, like a half dozen bells, and then with a rope attached to the bell. So if you pull that, they are all different, slightly different sound. So you can hear different sound. And that I thought was a beautiful idea, the color and with a bell sound together. And then, so in this, there's a painting of another painting underneath with a red, blue, yellow, white, different marks underneath, and then overlay the light green color thinly. Then I went over, draw white thread-like. So red, blue, white, different colors of lines are as if if you pull that, then you can make sound. But it's just a feeling I had. But I did not feel this painting was able to reach where I wanted to reach, but it's there.
So this is a painting from this year, Survivor. I remember seeing it at your most recent exhibition and speaking with you at the time that, to my mind, this marked something of a new direction. And I think, at least at the time, you were not sure that you thought so, or you had not really thought of it that way.
Yeah.
For me, because of the use of color and the way and the use of space within the canvas, it feels like something maybe a little different, and perhaps not. So I would, in any case, I would love now, maybe 6 months on, I would love your thoughts about this.
Well, this painting, not the one you are looking at it, original one, was painted 2 years ago, and I just left it. And then I was looking at it carefully, and there was very interesting textures on the surface. And thinking, how could I bring this life, give a life to it? And then I started working on it. And it just went very quickly, and the color, the blue, somehow felt right to give a contrast. And then white flickering light-like quality against the, I felt like that was a wall, dark, deep, and the idea of like a wall and the kind of light coming through, playing around, moving around was interesting idea. But again, it is very something that you can refer to what you actually see. Isn't that interesting? I was looking at it after you sent this back to me, and I thought, my gosh, this is like some place you went, actually. Yeah. So this is more among the group you have most recent. Mm-hmm. I have 3 paintings there that are not in this. As you go home, just take a quick glance.
In the studio?
Yeah. I like
well, I'm curious. I mean, really, I would love to know To my mind, this feels like a new direction. But what is next? Do you have a sense of where you go
Yeah,
from
I'm just
here?
sometimes I'm not aware, so I'm just thinking that you would maybe I see through your eyes while you're here. I think maybe it might actually very much the same line.
So you have your own vision of where you're going, but sometimes it's important to hear what
Yeah.
what other people
Right, and
hear, and
then
what
sometimes, like simply you being there, it's influenced the way I am looking at it through you. I'm not aware that I'm doing that, but like sort of put me outside of my own space.
And is that something that you value, or is that something that's potentially disruptive?
It's very important. Yeah.
You think it's important? Mm-hmm. So you
Just
don't
like-
feel like this interrupts your own voice?
No. If it's not the way that I want, I won't. But it's almost like I have this colored glass that I see myself, right? But then I take this off and see it differently. So the person, sometimes you're painting and you take a camera, you take a photo of it, and it looks different from how you see it. So something like that.
But I was very struck by your saying that if it doesn't feel right, then you simply won't do it, or you won't change it. And it sounds like when I hear you say that, it speaks to me about how comfortable you are with yourself as an artist, and how well you feel like you know yourself, even though you're discovering things all the time. That you have a very clear sense of your own artistic sensibility, and that you know how to be true to that.
Well, if I'm ready for change, I should change, and that's fine with. I mean, I'm changing all the time. Last year I am not me, and next year I am different too. So this is interesting. I have to think about it. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like we should come back and do this again, not too far in the future, because it will be a new Hisako.
Yeah. Who are you? Both of us are different.
Both of us will be different. Well, I look forward to that.
So you can no responsible whatever you said today will be forgotten.
Somebody else did it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I look forward to that conversation in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.